Mr. Chairman, the Lubbock City Council is adjourned. Ms. Patterson Harris has dropped out, and so there's no longer a quorum. Thank you.
The mayor just announced no longer a quorum.
Okay. Yep. Good. Okay. All right. That brings us to item 8. We need to approve the minutes from the regular EUB board meeting on June 15, 2020, the minutes from the special called EUB board meeting on June 23rd, 2020, the special called EUB board meeting on June 24th, 2020, the special called EUB board meeting on July 2nd, 2020, and the minutes from the special called EUB board meeting of July 7th, 2020. So everyone's had a second to read those, so I'll take
So moved.
a motion by Mr. Schultz and a second by Mr. Boatman. All those in favor do so by raising your right hand. Approved. Henry, please say if you're in favor of those. It's here on the screen.
Ms. Henry, can you hear?
Yes, I can.
Are you in favor of approving the minutes?
Sure.
Okay, motion carries. Brings us to item 9. Mr. McCullough.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, what's your pleasure? I can hit the highlights, or because of the lateness of the day, we can.
Man, I really like the detail, but I think we should hit the highlights today.
Whatever questions y'all have.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Okay.
Highlights.
Well, on the construction report, page 37, we do have a number of new projects started, so that's a good sign that things are returning to normal. On page 39, you'll see the outage report there, kind of midway down the page on the right. System average interruption duration index. Of course, that big spike we saw in June was due to the hurricane force winds that hit us in June. So it's to be expected, but it'll hurt our statistics for a while. On page 41, the call center activity, sort of after that spike we had in May, returned to normal in June. Pretty good levels as we started getting people back. So we also had 1,220 customers that we served in the lobby. So we are returning to normal in the business center. Page 43, the AMI report. We're at 98.1% complete with respect to the original meters that we expected, but since we have grown to 107,000 meters total now, we're only at 95% compared to that statistic. So we do need to order some additional meters. Let me take my mask off, maybe you can hear me better. We do need to order additional meters, and that is an agenda item on page 152 of your packet today. It's on the consent calendar. So the expectation is that we'll be substantially complete third quarter, and working on hard access and commercial meters at this time. Page 45, the water report. Again, we're at about 92% in terms of the new meters, 98.3% complete with respect to the original population, and revised expectation is to be substantially complete in fourth quarter. Significant focus being placed on resolving the cannot complete accounts and large commercial meters. Those take special scheduling, and have to work pretty carefully on those. On the Oracle project, which is on page 48 of your packet. Oracle Itron integration has been completed, but there are some issues with regard to throughput and the lag time associated with getting the meters into the system. That's kind of held up some of our testing and certification, that doing the end-to-end testing. So this has been a key highlight of the last week or so. We think progress is being made, but it's a risk factor for us, and so we've got to get that resolved in terms of getting the meters from the Itron cloud into the Oracle cloud.
Yes, Roman.
Yes, sir. No, sir. Michelle, can you talk about that? Meters refused, what all does that entail?
I mean, that can tell, some of it may be a customer who has indicated that they are not wanting the meter, but most of the time it's, no, I don't want you to do it right now, this isn't a good time. Come back later.
But they're not turning down.
No, it's just a matter of, most of it is just a matter of coordinating the exchange time.
We've only officially had 39 customers who opt out,
No.
permanently do not want that on meter. So that is a very small number that have actually officially opted out.
Well, that's over 1,000.
Right.
Thank you.
So that's it for my report unless there's questions. Jason Avent, I think, is going to give a high-level overview of the 115 kV program.
Good afternoon. Same format as the previous 2 months EUB meetings. So the schedule you see in front of you has been a few changes since last month. As you're going to see in red, a few projects have slid slightly, and we have utilized 1 week of construction float for the overall integration to ERCOT. You'll see that at the very, very top. If I can find the laser pointer, that top right square, which is now pink, and that's due to both Dunbar and Yellow House, the RFP cycle having slid a month. So very, very small change to the overall program, still about a month float of what we need to hit our dates with the ERCOT integration. So we feel comfortable from the construction side. On this paper, the other main change will be the bottom section, which is the encore schedule. You see there's a lot of black right now. One thing we've tried to do is show the changes on the encore schedule, and we kind of had to get you as the board and the executive team at LPNL brought up to speed with what's happened. So the black is the current schedule. Red is added time, so the construction duration has grown. That's what that dark red is showing. And the green is where the construction duration has decreased. So what we've done today is kind of to bring the board up to speed with what's happened to the encore schedule. And moving forward, it's going to mirror the progress schedule we have in the program from this point forward. So next month, it'll all be blue with, red as a slip, or light blue as, construction duration kind of a gap. So again, we just want to make sure everyone's brought up to speed, be as transparent as we can with the encore schedules. Page 2, I'll go through the risk quickly for you, and I'll kind of hit the more important ones. So Southeast, we've had some construction delays due to an outage we weren't able to receive. Obviously, it's been very hot the past 2 weeks, in excess of 108 degrees. Wasn't the best time for the LPL system to take some of these outages. And it's Southeast as well as Holly to Southeast. So we're going to have some slight construction delays, as you see in the previous slide. We're working through the issues at Co-op. From last month, I briefed the board on an anchor bolt cage issue. We found the remedial action for that to fix it. We're going to make that correction, and we don't really anticipate any schedule delay on Co-op. A slight cost change, but it really doesn't move the needle for the project. So that was a win in our book. Then we have Dunbar and Yellow House. So we have some schedule concerns here, and we're considering that a moderate risk. And the main schedule concern we have is the delivery of the auto transformers. So those autos are being purchased and delivered by Encore as part of the agreement, and they have set dates on when they're going to show up. So we're trying to work with Siemens, which is the manufacturer, to ensure when we start construction in September, hopefully this time next month, we'll be approving the contractor for that RFP, that we have enough time to get the contractor on site, dig out the foundations, pour the concrete, to make sure all that works as closely as we can to the on-site delivery of those transformers. Mainly, we don't want to have them storing there without putting them on the foundation. We don't want to set up cribbing or have to pay for Siemens to store those. So that's a kind of a delicate act we're playing right now in construction. It's going to be an on-time delivery, but we feel confident that it's just a moderate risk. It's not a high risk yet. I mentioned briefly Southeast or Holly to Southeast. And then the last one I have here for you today is Posey to Southeast. So this is an Encore project. And this is going to be one of the first risks we've really brought to the EUB that we're tracking from the construction team. That's a noticeable risk. The right-of-way acquisition process by Encore is slowed from what their original projections were. Let me do mention, though, their in-service dates have not changed. Their overall schedule durations haven't changed. It's just taking them a little bit longer to purchase the necessary right-of-way for both the 345 and now the 115 lines. They're starting to see some of the pain and suffering that our own internal, legal department's been going through. So again, it's not a high level, it's a low for us right now, but it's something we're actively tracking, and we'll make sure and update the board each month on. From a high level perspective, to kind of go through it quickly, that's all I have, sir.
Thanks, sir. Questions, comments? Okay. Item 10, Andy?
10, I want to give you a quick update on the collection trends that we're seeing related to COVID-19. I've been showing you this chart for the last number of months, but you can see how our past dues, 30 days and over, are about $1 million higher today than they were this time last year. And we still see a pretty steep increasing slope to this graph, even at the present time. So that's something that we're still keeping an eye on, and hopefully we'll start to see that drop off as we begin to help our customers get caught up through the Pay and Seeks program or through the assistance that we've talked about over the last several months. Since I had the first 15 days of data for July, I just wanted to look at the first 15 days of data for the last several months. This is accounts that would be eligible for late fees if we were still charging late fees. You can see it's been a little all over the place. The last couple of months have been pretty steady. So about 13,000 accounts in the first 15 days of each month, the last couple of months. So that's holding steady. Again, we hope to see some improvement there. Daily payment arrangements that are voided. These are folks who set up in a payment arrangement and they don't meet the terms. You see that really spiked in April at about almost 600 accounts in one day. We're averaging now about 50 a day that are defaulting on those payment arrangements. And we did have a little bit of a spike about a week ago, about 185. You can see towards the right there, but overall, the trend is much better than it was in the early parts of the pandemic. As of July 17th, if we were going to be disconnecting, which we are still not, as of this time, you would have had about 9,800 customers that would have been subject to disconnection. The value of those outstanding balances is about $2.8 million. We have had an increase in number of customers who are on payment arrangements. In May, there were about 4,000. In June, about 4,600. And now we have about almost 5,200. So you can see an increasing trend on number of customers getting back on payment arrangements. And so I think that's a really good sign. Here's a graph that kind of shows, again, these are for the first 15 days of each month, how many people are signing up for payment arrangements. Historically, it was in the 5,700 range, and it dipped a good bit, but we are starting to see that rebound. So about up to 3,800 folks have signed up for a payment arrangement in the month of July so far. On the Pay and Six, the statistics there are a little surprising to me. I thought they would be higher than they are, but we have had about just shy of 300 customers sign up for the Pay and Six program. So we are hoping that will really take hold and a lot more people will call in and get signed up for that over the duration of the month of July. And just to remind everyone, the Pay and Six plan is one that we did put in place that it gives our customers the opportunity to help get caught up. It gives them 6 months to pay the balance that's on their July statement. Customers are, that will help hopefully, but also we're hoping to encourage our customers to get assistance through a number of agencies in town. We did follow the PUC's recommendation and provided a 2-week notice to customers that the Pay and Six program was being implemented. And so that we're hopeful that we'll have more outpouring of folks calling in to get set up for that. Some of the benefits again are if you're signed up for a payment arrangement, you can avoid your late fees, you can avoid being disconnected. And the Pay and Six program obviously helps spread those costs over a longer period of time than we might normally be able to do. Key point is to please stay current on the payments, on those payment arrangements, because if you cannot, then you would be subject to disconnection at that point. Customers can email us, they can send us their name, account number, and a good telephone number, and we can call them back, or they could call our call center at 775-2509 to get set up. And again, unable to pay for your services, well, hopefully this will help. We have the utility assistance agencies throughout town. We've talked about these in the last several meetings. In particular, Neighborhood House. These are the phone numbers as well. The Neighborhood House, they have exhausted their CARES Act funding. That they had about $1 million available. $500,000 was available for utility assistance. That has already been exhausted, and we haven't seen all of that yet. We've seen relatively small numbers come in so far, but we haven't had nearly $500,000 show up at our door yet from Neighborhood House for those accounts. But they do still have the CAP funding, the Comprehensive Energy Assistance Program, that is administered in alignment with the community development of the city. And so on this slide, you'll see how customer could sign up for assistance through that. That is a little bit more restrictive than the CARES Act funding, and it also is only available for electric utility expenses or gas, but we hope electric. And just to wrap up again, our goal is to assist our customers through this Pay in 6 program, hoping that they will reach out to the agencies, the number of agencies, churches, whatever in town that has assistance available. We're highly recommending that, and we're certainly helping of our customers to reach out to those agencies or to get signed up for a payment plan, and we'll work with them in a number of ways. So just wanted to give you all an update. That's where we are. Continue to encourage friends, people in the community that you know that option is available and they can get signed up throughout this month. Any questions?
Questions there? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bertram. Brings us to item 11, financial and capital statements, finance. Mr. Lee.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well today. Let's get started with our financial statements from May. I'll take you in a very summarized version as we've been doing in the past couple of months. We'll start off with our financial statements and current asset portion. When we compare it to the year end, we are very much depleted, but when we compare it to the last month, we are looking good. We have been making some cash entries that has gotten our balance up. We do see a slight increase in our accounts receivable as well. That was about 1.7 million compared to last month. That is just due to the weather itself and somewhat normalcy coming back to our life. On the other hand, our non-current assets are also increasing. We see an increase by 8 million, which is largely attributed to our construction in progress. Compared to last month, we had 10.8 additional million going into construction in progress category. So we keep building stuff. On the next page, with our current liability, we see current liability increased by 16.3 million. Now, again, that goes hand in hand with our construction in progress increasing and our notes proceeds increasing. So our current liability would increase as we continue to build more stuff and request more funding. Moving on to our income statement on the next page, we would see a decrease in revenue that is by about 3.9 million when we compare it to this time last year. That is largely due to our PPRF revenue being down and our purchase power marketing revenue being part of the purchase power currently. But not to worry, our expenses are down just as well. We are down by 6.8 million in our expenses, which is due to the fuel and the power by 6.3 million. We are continuing to see the decrease in natural gas prices, just getting lucky there. And we have few small increases on our services and supplies, but nothing major that would offset that. Moving on to our cash flows, we do see our operating activities are looking better in the cash flows this month when compared to last month. We have about 3.8 million, and everything else also went into the positive cash flow category as we continue to receive more funding in financing and investing activity as we continue to spend those funds in our constructions. So that's a brief overview of what we did. Any questions?
Questions?
Do you know how much revenue increase you'll have over this heat wave that we had in July? An idea how much difference in power that y'all had to use?
You know,
Revenue rise?
I know that we had some high load days when our load was in excess of 600 megawatts. That's a near peak load condition. So I suspect that at least the first part of July is going to be really, really good. Of course, we don't know what weather's kind of moderated since the heat wave, and may kind of average out to a normal July month.
Any questions or comments? Mr. Taylor?
So, on the statement of cash flows, our total capital asset purchase is 71.9 million. I know Mr. Evans given us a report on the overall, in detail of those projects, but as far as cash expenditures, where does that put us in relation to our overall budget for the year through May?
For capital. You know, right now we have appropriation of about 450 million in capital for this fiscal year, and to date, about 165 million of that has been spent, and about 70 million has been encumbered. So about half of it has been either spent or encumbered at this point. What's in capital?
Okay.
All right, well, thank you guys.
Thank you, Renew. All right, brings us to item 12, discuss, take action, LPNL's fiscal year operator 2021 operating budget capital program. I think July 7th, I think everyone was there as well, so turn it over to you, Mr. Bertram.
All right, we do have a few slides to go through today. This is more abbreviated than what we provided at the Finance Committee meeting a couple of weeks ago. Hopefully you've all had a chance to go through the document, and we've provided you hard copies. If you want to take those with you, you're welcome to, in addition to the electronic copy today. But I wanted just to go over a few highlights, and then if y'all have any questions, Joe and I are certainly happy to address any questions you have. You know, again, like I did at the Finance Committee meeting, I have to brag on an outstanding staff that I have. Very, very fortunate to have Joe Jimenez, who's our financial planning and analysis manager, who really led the effort this year. This was his first year on the budget, did an exceptional job on that. He leads a really good team too, Tanika Williams and Daniel Garcia, who I meant to invite today, and I hate that they're not here for you to at least see them behind their masks, but they're both new to LPNL this year for the budget process, and really did an exceptional job. And of course, Renew is always part of our team and helping in every way she can. So very, very lucky to have that. In addition to them, we have many department directors, project managers that spend a lot of time putting this budget together. We've started this at the beginning of March. And so this is a long time coming to get this wrapped up and presented to you. So the document you have before you right now, I wanted to give a few highlights, and then I'm going to let Joe go into a little bit of detail, but not too deep, not as deep as we went last time. This will be a historic year for us upcoming. June of 2021, our integration into ERCOT is very exciting. And so there's a lot of things in this budget that are wrapped around that transition to ERCOT. We anticipate completing over 150 miles of transmission this year, or at least we will have completed it at a cost of about $205 million. That is down about 2% from the number last year. We had about $209 million in the budget last year. So we've been able to trim that a little bit. Associated with that cost is a new revenue stream. So the majority of these transmission costs, or all these transmission costs that we're implementing, will not have to be paid for by the Lubbock citizens. They're pooled with the other transmission assets in ERCOT and will be covered in that manner. So that new revenue stream will help pay for those costs. We're also will be completing our 69 kV and 115 kV transmission loops. That is at a cost of $132 million. That is also down. Last year, we had almost 140 million in the budget, so that's down about 5.5% from what we had projected this time last year. Again, these projects are accompanied with that new revenue stream, transmission cost of service revenues. Also, in 2021, we will begin purchasing power and transmission service in ERCOT. We will also make a hold harmless payment to SPS as we exit. That's a $24 million payment. Those funds have already been reserved and are sitting, earning interest right now in anticipation of making that payment in June of next year. And then also we will begin a large project to upgrade our distribution system to improve and expand that part of our network. We will also have completed our installation of automated meters and a new billing system. We anticipate a go-live date at the beginning of the fiscal year. And so we will be working very hard over the remaining summer months in early fall to get that implemented. We have, as we mentioned a moment ago, installed over 102,000 meters. This time last year, when we met for the budget, we'd installed 11,000. So it's an enormous amount of progress that Michelle and Jamie, sitting against the wall over there, have done. They have been part of our exceptional team of project managers that have gotten a very, very large and significant project done with relative ease, as easy as projects can be. So all of these things, the magnitude of activities, of items that have taken place over a number of years, all culminating this year. But again, we're able to recommend no base rate increase in this budget. We have not had to raise the base rates since October of 2017, and we're very proud of that. You can see on these two tables on this page, the rate 1 and rate 3 customers. These are our largest rate classes made up of residential customers. Again, the service availability charge will stay the same, $8.07. And the energy charge stays the same in each rate class. They're a little bit different, but there will be no change or increase in either one of those or in any rate class, but those are the ones I wanted to highlight today. Also included in the budget document is a financial model that looks into the future. One of the main reasons we do that is to anticipate future costs, future activities that might impact, our base rates or any impacts on our customers in the long run. It allows us to plan ahead. And if we have to implement rate increases, we can do that over a period of time rather than a surprise all in one year. The model currently does not anticipate any rate increases over the time horizon, which is through 25-26. At least that's the current vantage point that we have. It also envisions opt-in to retail choice by around October of 2023. So that is incorporated in the future look. That, along with that, means that there will be no purchases of power at that point, because there will be no retail sales. Those will all shift to retail electric providers. So therefore, we will operate basically as a transmission and distribution utility. In that time frame, the model anticipates shifting our franchise fee and payment in lieu of property taxes to a cents per kilowatt calculation rather than a percentage of revenue kind of calculation. So it will allow us to continue to provide the same amount of support to the general fund that we have historically. So that should insulate the general fund of the city from our move into ERCOT. Because those revenues, once we move into ERCOT, the retail revenues would fall off substantially. If you kept the original formula, that would mean the franchise fees in pilot would also fall. So keeping it at a cents per kilowatt charge will keep that intact for the general fund. There will also be a number of customer fees that will be eliminated as the retail electric providers would then take on those responsibilities. So that would go away, and that's been eliminated in our model. Our customer service group downstairs, who handles all the utilities today, there would be a subset that will still continue to handle all the other utilities, but in our circumstances, we'd mostly retrain those or reconfigure that group to handle the market operations, interrelationships with the retail electric providers that we work with in the competitive marketplace. We also in the model have 5 years of hold harmless payments to ERCOT. I mentioned a moment ago that this next year we'll be making a payment to SPS. We'll also be making our first installment of our payment to ERCOT for their hold harmless. Also in the model, we have over 50% of our future capital needs are planned to be funded with cash. That will help us over time get closer to our funding level of a 65% debt and 35% cash. We've been heavy on the debt side over the last several years, but in the future we'll be heavy on the cash side. And so over time, that ratio will get closer to our goal. Our debt service just slightly increases over time. We'll have a significant increase this next year as we issue the approximately $300 million in debt to pay for all the transmission. But beyond that, there are slight increases each year going forward. We do in the model have a potential phase out of our generating units. We are still going to study that and ensure that's the right decision for the utility. But the way that we have modeled it right now is that is eliminated by the 23-24 fiscal year. And then finally, our general reserves, we anticipate those staying about where they are, increasing a little bit. Today, they range around the $67 million level, and that would increase slightly to about $69.8 million over the future, on average over the future years. So that's a real high level overview. I'm going to turn it over to Joe just to give y'all a little bit more of a deeper dive into the operating part of the budget. And so, Joe.
Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon. As Andy mentioned, I'm going to go through an abbreviated version of the fiscal year 2020 operating budget that we presented a couple of weeks to the Finance Committee. But again, if y'all have any questions along the way, please feel free to stop me. I'm going to go at a high level this time. The first thing I want to talk about was an overview of the changes we made from the initial proposed draft to the final proposed draft that y'all have on your books right now. I mean, on your table right now. The first change was the transfer from other funds has increased by $1.2 million due to a transfer for the water fund for its portion of the Lake 7 reroute cost for the Double Mountain to Fiddlewood 345 line capital project. Initially, we had in our model and in our draft, we had projected that this will be paid back in 30 years. Just because the term of the debt for this capital project was 30 years, but the city decided to pay its portion of the $1.2 million next fiscal year. And therefore, we increased the transfer in by the $1.2 million as well as the transfer to capital by $1.2 million for next fiscal year. The next change was the Oracle service cost in the narrative was corrected from $0.78 million to $0.72 million on page 4. So it would be reflected correctly on the expense. The next change was we updated the CIP for category summary section on page 33. And this change was made to reflect any capital changes that we made from the initial proposed draft to the final. The other change we made was the capital project detail sheets have been updated to remove any sensitive information deemed confidential, and the NERC compliance statement has been removed on page 34. As you recall, in prior years, we did not provide the capital detail sheets in the public document. They were considered confidential pages, but we went through and combed through the scope and the justification of these projects to take out any sensitive information that could be made part of the public document as well. And also our demand cap has been updated from 29 to 28. That was an error we made. The demand cap should have been at 29 instead of 28. On this next slide, you can see a chart where it breaks down our funding sources, excluding the power cost recovery factor revenues. And as you can see, our total operating revenues for fiscal year 2021 are $97.4 million. Of course, the majority of this comes from the general consumed meter base rates, which is $67.4 million, and the franchise fee is $12.2 million. Our transmission cost of service net is $7.2 million. Transfers in are $5.8 million, and the rest of the funding sources are $4.8 million. On this next slide, you can see that our operations increased or $96.3 million, which is an increase of $3.4 million compared to last fiscal year. On this slide, you can see the principal and interest decreased 8.5 million due to paying off the 2000 series revenue bonds that were issued to finance the acquisition of the SPS distribution system. Our compensation and benefits also decreased by 400,000 due to a reduction of 3 meter reading positions, a reduction in expected terminal pay, and part-time pay and temporary pay as well. Our no program fees also decreased by 400,000. This was due to a majority of the undrawn fees and agent fees that were paid in this current fiscal year. Our indirect cost allocation increased $500,000 due to new costs in fiscal year 2021 for our portion of the Citizens Towers maintenance costs and other increased expenses in the city's administrative cost centers. Schedule charges was a pretty big increase. They increased $1.1 million, and it was due to large increases in property and liability charges due to claims, loss history, and the volatility of the insurance markets. Slightly offsetting this cost was a decrease in our IT schedule charges by $240,000, and this was due to the Oracle and iTron cloud programs that have decreased software charges in our IT schedule charge. The transmission system inventory is a new line item for fiscal year 2021, and this is related to the purchase of necessary inventory items for the new transmission system, and these total 1.6 million scheduled for fiscal year 2021. Our franchise fee and pilot increased 1.85 million and 0.37 million respectively due to increases in the general consumed metered revenues, PCRF revenues, and the recognition of revenue reserved for the SPS hold harmless payment. Professional services increased 2.4 million as compared to last year due to us contracting nerve transmission certified operators and regulatory purchase power negotiation costs and regulatory compliance costs and Oracle Cloud Services increased charges. And as I mentioned earlier, the transfer to capital increased 4.9 million as compared to last year. And the reason for this is because we are funding around $22 million worth of cash funded projects this year compared to the 17.1 that we funded in fiscal year 2019-20. The next section is the purchase cost recovery factor. And as you can see, our costs totaled 163.1 million for next fiscal year, excluding the SPS hold harmless payment. And the energy and fuel portion is 79.4 million of the budget. The transmission is 42.1 million. Capacity comes in at 31 million, and our production comes in at $10.6 million. There was an increase of in energy and fuel in the amount of $7 million as compared to last year, and this cost was driven, or this increase was driven by anticipated higher costs of energy in the SPP integrated marketplace and the ERCOT markets due to increasing natural gas prices, because we're expecting them to come back to get to normal levels as they've been really low in the prior years. Our capacity has decreased 5.3 million as compared to last fiscal year, and this is solely related to the termination of the 400 megawatts capacity contract on May 31st, 2021, as we plan to opt into ERCOT in June of 2021. Our transmissions costs increased 11.23 million, as this is the first year that LP&L pays transmission costs both in ERCOT and along with SPP transmission costs. The SPP costs are charged on a 1-year lag. And the last section of our operating budget is a capital program. And for this fiscal year, we funded 18 projects for fiscal year 2021 for a total of $36.3 million. And as you can see, we kind of broke them out in there. So there's 6 annual projects that total 15.1 million, 2 transmission projects that total 2.6 million, 3 distribution projects that total 8.8 million, 2 vehicle projects that total 4.8 million. The reason we have 2 vehicle projects is this year we funded transmission equipment for a crew that we plan to come on the following fiscal year. So that's the reason we have 2 vehicle projects this year compared to the actual one we have every year. We have 1 systems project that's at 3.6 million and 1 capacity upgrade that's 600,000, along with the East Broadway streetlight conversion project and a streetlight audit project for 600,000 total, and 1 dispatch project in the amount of $200,000. And if you can see in our model that we average that the annual capital program is roughly $40 million a year going forward. And as you can see on this slide, the significant capital investment, we put this slide together so y'all could see how our capital projects are broken up. As you can see, transmission is the majority of all our capital program summary. It takes 56.3% of our total funding and costs of our capital summary, and distribution follows at 27.1%, and regional at 12.2%. And then finally, transmission distribution is about 4%. And that concludes my short version of the proposed operating budget. If y'all have any questions, then that's the end of that part of the presentation.
There's no questions. We need to take action on the 2021 operating budget capital program.
Operating budget capital program as presented, and I
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Boatman to approve it and move forward. We have a second by Mr. Davis. All those in favor do so by raising your right hand. Okay, Mrs. Henry, give a thumbs up if you're on video. We have Brandon to give us a thumbs up. That would be that she is in favor, I would, correct? Okay. All those, I guess that's actually motion carries 8-0, so that one passes. Brings us to item 12.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to say, Andy and Joe, y'all do a wonderful job. It takes a lot of time to do budgeting, I know. So congratulations. I understood it very well, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for both presentations. They did a great job, and everyone that was involved, let them know as well.
Thank y'all for the time y'all spent looking at it. The finance committee spent a lot of time on it, and we appreciate that. Good work.
Thank you.
Brings us to item 13, discuss take action on the fiscal year 2021 electric rate tariff schedule and make appropriate recommendations to City Council.
Okay, again, we're just gonna go over the rate, the tariff and rate schedule overview. And there were minimal changes this year to the fiscal year 2021 proposed tariff. I just wanted to highlight a couple of changes that were made from last fiscal year to this fiscal year. On page 197, you'll see the only thing we changed is our current location address to the new Citizens Tower address. On pages 200 and 201, we emphasize that customers can avoid disconnection if they set up themselves for a payment plan. On page 241, with the installation of AMI, the waiver of opt-out fees was in place until the completion of AMI installations. So this sentence has thus been deleted. On page 242, the PCR section included the authority to reserve the 24 million whole harmless payment. And this paragraph has been deleted since we have collected the 24 million already. And of course, the demand cap on here is we've been phasing out the demand cap of the tariff since fiscal year 2015-16, and we are proposing the 6th year of the phase out. Of course, it's 29 this year compared to the 35 last year. And this demand cap provides a discount on demand charges for certain customers and incentivizes inefficient use of the distribution system. So this demand cap will be incrementally phased out until all customers are paying for the amount of power they consume. This phase out ensures that no customer will see more than a 20% increase in their billing demand. An example of this is a customer with 124,800 kWh and 4,800 kW. With the current cap right now, they will be paying 3,566 kW out of the 4,800 kW they consume. With the new proposed cap at 29 hours, they will now be billed for the 4,303 kW, which is a difference of 737 kW. And like I said, we will be phasing this out until everybody pays for the demand that they use. And that is all the changes I have, or the updates we have for the tariff, unless there's any questions.
Questions or comments, sir? I'll entertain a motion.
make a motion to approve the tariff dated October 1, 2020.
Second.
Got a motion, we have a second. All those in favor do so by raising your right hand. Ms. Henry,
I'm trying.
you're good? You in favor?
Yes.
Okay. That motion carries 8-0 as well. Brings us to the consent items. There's 14 through 20 on here. I assume everyone's had a second or chance to go through those. Entertain a motion. Have a motion by Mrs. Stafford. A second. I'll second. Have a second by Mr. Davis. All those in favor do so by raising your right hand. Mrs. Henry?
Yes.
Okay. That motion also carries 8-0. Brings us to item 21. It is 3:30 and we are adjourned. Thank you all.
Good job.
Be a record for us, right?
Under your chairmanship.
For sure, yeah. Don asked what that 3 up there meant. He said it was 3 minutes, but I think that was the projected time for the 3 o'clock. Yeah, it was about 30 minutes over. Thank y'all. That was a good one.
Yeah, good one.
Thanks, sir. Yep, if we don't have a special before, right? I mean, when I saw all those minutes, I was like,